Hey everybody, this is Games Plus James, and welcome back to our Unity RPG tutorial series. Now, we just finished up improving our attacks in the game, but at the moment we only have one attack value based on what our sword is hurting our enemies with. But obviously in an RPG game you want to be able to upgrade your stats and things like that. So what we're going to do now is take a look back at our player stats. So previously, if I just go to our canvas here that we attached our player stats to, we sorted out how to make our player level up. And at the moment our level up doesn't do anything apart from telling our players that they leveled up. So what we want to do is actually add an ability for our levels up to mean something. So we're going to use some extra little stats that will actually, as our player levels up, you get more powerful and stuff like that. So the way we're going to do that is by opening up our player stats script. We're going to open this up here in MonoDevelop. Here we go. And we're going to need to add a couple more arrays, just like we used for our experience levels. Instead, we're going to use a couple of extra arrays. So we'll do a public int, make it an array, and we're going to call this one our HP levels. Then we're going to do another one for public int, and we're going to call this one attack levels. Actually, that should be small a, not that it matters too much, but we'll leave that just for kind of regular convention. Public int defense levels. So at the moment these are the only stats we're going to use. We're going to keep it nice and simple, and we're going to create a new way for our attacks to actually do some damage and how we take attacks from the enemies as well. So we have a bunch of different values here that we're going to use now, but we obviously need to keep track of what our current versions of all these things are. So we're going to create some extra values of public int, and this time it's not an array, but our current HP, public int current attack, and we'll do a public int current defense. Okay, so I'm just going to save this and we'll pop back into Unity. And if we take a look at our player stats component here, as soon as it finishes compiling, we'll get a bit of extra stuff in here. So at the moment in our level up, we've got 10 rows here. We have level 0, which immediately levels up to level 1, and then from there we get certain different experience and we earn more levels. So in our HP levels, our attack levels, and our defense levels, what we need to assign is what should those values be when we're at certain levels. So our HP levels, let's set the size of that to be 10. When we start the game, we want to start with say 50 health. So whether we're at level 0 or level 1, we'll set both of them to be 50, because we don't want our player, if we are on level 0, we don't want it to go, okay, if we were to leave this at 0, say, if our game starts up, it might immediately go, okay, no, our health is 0, so we'll kill the player straight away. And that could occur before this has a chance to activate. So we don't want to do that. So we'll set it to be 50 to start off with. And then we'll just add in some extra values along the way. So you can obviously do whatever kind of progress you want with these things, but we'll just keep it nice and simple. Kind of give our player some extra health along the way. So we're going to do the same with attack now. Again, we'll have it being 10 in size because we wanted to keep it the same as however many levels we can have in the game for the player here. So if we're attacking the players, we want to start off with a certain amount of value, so we'll set it to be 5, but that before our player actually gets to attack anything, it should immediately go to level 1 anyway, so that doesn't matter. So we'll set it at 5 there like that, and then as the player levels up, they start to get a bit more powerful along the way. And again, you can pick whatever values you want to use yourself. We're just kind of sorting out these values is a certain amount of kind of your own input into it. How you feel the player should progress along the way. You could make them, you could want them to have a very slow progression in levels, so maybe they only get one extra bit of attack every 2 or 3 levels, say, or you might want to double their attack every time they levels up. So that's kind of up to you and what you want to do with it. So with our defense, we'll start off with 0, and on level 1 we'll have 0 as well, but then as we slowly get a bit more powerful, we start to kind of level up a little bit along the way. Okay, so we have a bunch of different values here, but at the moment that's all they are. They're just different values and we don't have any way to actually access them. So back in our script here, in our start function, obviously we would want to set what our current HP, current attack and current defense should be to start off with. So we know that we actually don't really want to use the 0 value. So what we could do would just be to use the current level amount here to set these, but we don't want it to be 0, so we can set it to be automatically 1. So let's just do that. So we'll say our current HP should be equal to, in the HP levels array, we want to get it from position 1, like that. So we'll do the same with current attack, should be in the attack levels array. We want to pull it from position 1 instead of position 0, which would be the default one. So, and then our current defense should be equal to our defense levels at position 1. So we'll save that. And now, obviously, we have a value set for when we start the game. So if we actually just play it here, we should see these values getting assigned into here. But we obviously wanted to actually do something when we level up. So we're going to have to add an extra bit of code to what happens when our characters level up at the moment. So I just turn off maximize on this. So we go back in, we see our current HP is 50, our current attack is 5, and our current defense is 0. So that's fine. Actually, yeah, that's deactivated. And so yeah, we need to actually do something when we level up. So at the moment, when our current XP is greater than the value that we need to level up, we set the current level to be ++. So instead of doing just that, what we're actually going to do is add an extra function in down below here. So we're going to say public void level up. And this is what we're going to use to level up our character. So instead of just adding our current level here, we'll just comment that out there. And instead what we're going to do is call the level up function. So we'll say level up and then 2 brackets and our semicolon. And so what that'll do then is, at this point in the script, it'll go, okay, we want to run this bit of this function. So we'll jump down to here. And what's in here? Well, obviously we still want our current level to go up by 1. So we'll add that in there. But there's a couple of other things we want to do too. Just like we did up here when we set our current HP to be equal to a certain value, here we want our current HP should be equal to, from the HP levels array, this time what we use is the actual value of our current level. So now that we've leveled up, we should say, okay, so say we've leveled up to level 2. Now what will happen is it'll go to HP levels and it'll go to the second position in the array. So instead of our HP being 50 as it is here, we'll go to level 2, so we'll be at 55 health. We also, obviously we want to do the other two, so let's just copy these two from here. So our current attack and our current defense, we'll paste them in here, and instead of saying the 1 here, we'll say current level should be in there, and the same here, current level should be in there. Okay, so that's fine. Our HP is getting set by whatever level we currently have, but at the moment that's not actually doing anything for us. That's not actually being applied to the player. So we need to apply that back to where our player is getting their health from. So we know on our player himself, if we go down, he has the player health manager attached to him, and that controls what his maximum health is and what his current health is. So if we level up, obviously we want the player's maximum health to go up, but also in general, when you level up, say if you gain 5 points when you level up, or 5 points like maximum, you would also be given those 5 points to your current health, because it doesn't really look good if, say for example, you have full health, you level up, and then all that happens is you have the capacity to have more health, but you don't actually have more health. So we want to be able to do both of those things, to actually apply all this to our player health manager. So we know that that is controlled by the player health manager script, so we're going to have to add that in to our player stats script here, or a reference to that at least. So we'll add a private player health manager that we'll call the player health, like that. So as we've done before in our start function here, we want to set the player health is equal to find object of type player health manager. Okay, so then down here, after we set our current HP to be whatever it should be now that we've leveled up, what we can do is add in a little bit of code here and say on the player health, the player max health should now be equal to whatever our current HP is. So we say we move to level 2, our new health should be 55. But as I said, we also want to add on that little bit of difference. So the difference between those two things, between level 1 and 2, is actually 5. But that will change based on which level you're going to. So for example, if I go back here and look at our canvas on our HP levels, so the difference between 1 and 2 is 5, but the difference between say 5 and 6 is 10. So we don't want to just say add on 5 here. We want to add on what the difference is between what the current HP is and whatever the HP value of the last level was. So what we can do for that is say the player health dot player current health. Oh no, I moved onto the wrong line there. Dot player current health is equal to sorry, not is equal to. We're saying it should be plus equal to, because we're going to add on whatever the little bit difference is. And to work out the difference, we can just say the current HP minus from our HP levels whatever the current level minus 1 was. So for example, say if we're on level 2, what it'll do is it'll take away 1 from that. So level 1, what is the HP value of that? So say it was 50, so our current HP would be 55, so it would take away 50 from 55, we're left with 5. We add that on to our player current health, and our player will be given that extra bit of health when they level up. So let's go and see that in action back here. So if we hit play, once it's finished compiling in the corner down here, we should see. Well, obviously we'll also need to set when we start the game our max health, because at the moment our HP is starting off at 2000 because we messed around with that earlier on. So we just got to kill a couple of enemies here. If we can just kill this guy. There we go, we killed him. So there we go, we see our HP went up to, or our maximum HP went up to 55, and although we're actually down by 5 HP here, that's because we took an attack and we got damaged by 10. So we took a little bit of damage, but we added back on the 5 that we should have gotten to start off with. So there we go, we can see we're on level 2. So our HP meter is working absolutely fine. Just the way we want it to. And what we'll do is, actually, rather than messing around with all this adding extra code, we'll just remember to set our default player starting health should just be the same as what is on our player stats level. That's the simplest way to do it, rather than having to go and add lots of different bits of code. Keep it nice and simple like that. Okay, so that's all fine and dandy. We've got our health being set nicely like that, but what about our attack and our defense statistics that we just created? Let's apply them to how our attacks are working in the game. And it's very simple and straightforward to do that. So if we open up our hurt player and our hurt enemy scripts, we'll open both of these up here. And we're going to just add a few extra little lines of code to make these do some damage and change how we take damage. So on our hurt, so we start with our hurt enemy script. So at the moment what happens is our hurt enemy script is just whatever damage is set on the sword, that's what does damage to the enemy. So there's no way to actually adjust that. But we're going to do a very simple way. We're just going to add on what our player's current attack value is. We're just going to add that to our sword's attack value, and then that produces how much damage they do. It's a very simple and basic way. There's lots of different ways to calculate your damage in RPG games. It's kind of all about which formula you would like to use, but we're going to keep it nice and simple with this method here. So obviously we're going to need to make a reference to the player stats script, because that's storing how much attack value the player has. So we're going to add a private player stats that we'll just call the PS, keep it nice and simple. And then in the start function here, we're going to say the PS equals find object of type player stats, like that. So we have a value here for how much damage the sword, as we're using at the moment in the game, how much damage the sword should do. But we don't want to make modifications to that based on what the player has. Because say for example the sword has 5 and the player has 5 attack. If we were to combine those two together, suddenly this value would be 10, and then next time we go to check it again, our player's stat would add on another 5 again. So we don't want to do that. We want to use a separate value to keep track of how much damage we're dealing at any particular moment. So we'll say a private int current damage here. And then down here, instead of using damage to give as the value that hurts the enemies, we're going to use current damage in here. And the same for what is being displayed when our damage numbers are appearing in the game. So we'll add a current damage there like that. So that means when those floating numbers appear after we hurt an enemy, this will be the current damage value. So how do we calculate what the current damage should be? Well, very simply, we'll just add in up here. Our current damage should be equal to whatever the damage to give value for the sword itself is, plus on the PS, so that's our player stat object, what is the current attack. And that's basically all we have to do. So we can do almost the exact same thing on our hurt player script to control how badly our enemies hurt our player. So what we'll do is go to our hurt player. We're going to add in the same reference again. So we'll add a private player stats. Again, we'll call it the PS to keep it nice and simple. We will say in here, the PS is equal to find object of type player stats, like that. And again, we'll need to keep track of what the value should be. So we'll add a private int current damage. And then down here, again, instead of saying we'll use the damage to give value, we'll use the current damage value. So this is what damage will be given whenever the player gets attacked by an enemy or anything like that. So at the moment, for example, we know that our slimes deal 10 damage when they run into the player. And that's fine and dandy, but again, we're going to use a very simple formula to make it so that as the player gets stronger, he will take less damage from the enemies. So we know, if we go back to our player stats here, we know, for example, using our defense levels, here it is, when we start off with, we have 0, but as we get to level 2 we have 1, and level 3 we have 3. So what we can do is say, okay, every time we get attacked, we should just take away whatever the defense value is away from how much damage our enemies are doing. So we can say here, our current damage should be equal to whatever the damage to give value is of the enemy. We'll take away whatever on the player stats the current defense value is. The only problem with this is, say once we get to level 6 here, our defense level will be 12, but these little slimes are only doing 10 damage, so they would be doing, at that point they'd be doing -2 damage, which would be giving the player health back, which would be fine and dandy. If you want to do that, go ahead, if you would like that your game to work that way, but it kind of doesn't really make a lot of sense. So what we can do is just add an extra check in here to say if our current damage is less than 0, which would be what would happen in that situation, we'd have -2. So if our current damage was -2, then what we should just say is, okay, in that situation, current damage is equal to 0. So anytime our current damage goes below 0, our current damage will be set to be just equal to 0. Or you could just have it so that it always does a tiny bit of damage, so we could say our current damage is equal to 1. So we would say that if our current damage is less than or equal to 0. But we'll stick with it being, if it's less than 0, then it should just be 0. So now if we save this, we should be able to see this in action back in the game. So we'll just let it compile, and then we'll run this and see how it goes. Okay, so we've got our HP and our level 1. So at the moment, now that we've added we've made changes to our attack, when we hit this enemy, there we go, we should get 10 every time, and we see we took 10 damage when it hit us. So now that we've jumped up to level 2, if we walk into him, there we go, we get 9 damage. And if we attack him, now we're doing 12. So our player starts to get this feeling that they're actually doing some good in the world. And just to test that our levels are working properly, let's level ourselves up to level 6 by giving ourselves 1200 experience. Oh, we leveled up too far, but that's okay. That was a bit too much. So I forgot it was only 500 to get to level 6. So if we now walk into our enemies, we're not actually taking any damage from these guys because they're so weak. They're no longer doing damage to us. And it's a bit of a kind of extreme level up scale. If that's how we're going to do it, we need to manipulate how much damage our enemies are doing. But it works nicely for us. It's a very simple way to do all this stuff, and it keeps our players getting the sense that they're actually making progress in the game. So there you go. That's how we're adding a little bit more stats goodness to our game. So thanks for watching this episode, and I'll be back soon with some more RPG goodness. Thanks for checking out this episode, and if you want even more Games Plus James goodness, make sure you hit those subscribe and like buttons. You can also find me on Twitter and Facebook by following the links on screen, where you can find out all the latest news about the channel. And if you want to help support the show, check out the Patreon page, where you can get exclusive content in return for helping make the channel even better. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more.